All right. Hello, Max, and anyone else that will ever watch this. Today, what are we reviewing? Just another story. Right off the rip, pretty optimistic about reading this from the title. Find this so interesting. This is by Ernesto Saade, I think. I butcher pronunciations all the time, but great story. So let's give the top level view. The main, basically Ernesto, and I'll actually, while giving a top level view, I'll show you like some of the stuff that I loved about this comic right off. So this is, um, a true to life story. We have a very nice family tree breaking down some of the main characters in this story. In particular, the big main characters here are Carlos, who you can see down towards the bottom, his mom above him, and Ernesto, who's the guy that actually writes this comic about the story of his cousin, all the way there on the right. So this is, as I'm doing these book reviews, I'm realizing too there are some probably there's a finite number of types of stories you're probably going to see about the world. Like Shakespeare says, there's only I forget how many unique total stories. This is absolutely an immigration story for very obvious reasons. Reading through the book, I just had another one of these book reviews similarly illegal, and there's another one that I'm reading right now, which I'll review later, in the same vein. So, for obvious reasons, immigration is a massive type of immigration is a massive story that defines families, and this is this is 100% an immigration story. Carlos, the main character, and his mom are leaving El Salvador, going to the United States. They have to go via Mexico to get there, and this is really the boots on the ground details of what their story was like, told through conversations with Carlos's cousin Ernesto, and then he made this beautiful work of art describing that story. So top level view, that's what we're looking at. It's an immigration story. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. Let's dive in. I have to use a new notebook because I actually filled in my old one. But overall, very good scores across the board, more or less. In terms of characters, as I've mentioned several times, this book is heavily leaning on this connection between Carlos and his mother. You see at various they are the two true main characters here. You can see this is one of the ones where I always do this, where they're like on the eve of embarking on this great and perilous journey. You see a lot of authentic love between the mom and the son, but they also don't hide any of the challenges the relationships face either. This journey is harrowing. You also get to see them, having to, for instance, cross a river that they're not comfortable crossing as part of this process, and the son being pressured to kind of like shut his mom up, for lack of better words. So there's all these moments where there's tension between where Carlos is at in this process. He kind of, I think, feels forced by his mom to embark on this thing. So you see their relationship play out. It feels, it's a real story, obviously, but it feels like they just add the right amount of detail to it, where you're not being weighed down by like every conversation they have. But the author really, the cousin that wrote this graphic novel summarizing the events, I think just really brings the characters to life, like hones in on some of the stickier parts of their journey. There's also just some absolutely banger, unique characters. I'm not going to spoil. I know I tend to probably do a little bit of spoilers here, just describing the story, and sometimes that tells you how it turns out. Although for stories written about people that immigrate, it's the ending a little bit. But there's some absolute banger characters on the side, which I think is a rarity for these types of comics. I think sometimes the side characters just aren't that memorable, but this guy in particular, I'm not going to talk about him too much further, so that if you actually read this, there'll be some surprising parts. He's fascinating. There is another character with a scar here who I absolutely loved. You see him here a bit. I'm not gonna do much spoiling, but like the primary dynamic between Carlos and his mom, and then also his dad too, who's sort of like a bit of a deadbeat dad character that they have in the early part of the story. They're all really great characters. So I gave it a strong 7 out of 10 character score. I thought it was overall very good. And the art, I also gave a 7. I've already showed a bunch of these pages, but I love the use of color. There's just some really beautiful stuff. You get many slices of El Salvador. You get beautiful maps highlighting their journey. You get the stuff like the family tree at the beginning, and just like some great colorful visuals of the landscapes throughout. Something I also really like is they use like a different hue tone in the present day. So like when Carlos is talking to Ernesto in the present day about what happened in his immigration story, these are like the color tones you would see, which I just, all of it played really nicely with me. So I thought the art was really good. In terms of the history and culture, I think that I give this an 8 out of 10. I thought this was probably the strongest element of the book because obviously they're telling a real life immigration story, and they give you the kinds of details which are depressing because this is happening all the time. Again, I'm not going to spoil everything, but you see the weird kind of pressures by people that kind of have power over your ability to immigrate throughout the story. You see some atrocities. You see some some beautiful moments where people band together, but also they're it really paints this sense of the countries that they're leaving, the countries they're having to travel to, as well as just the uncertainties and the fearfulness of really every step of this journey. I think it just really captures that well. The cramped conditions, the fact that they're always oversold on the steps of these processes, and sometimes the surprising good guys, in a sense, that help them out along the way. So yeah, I think as that immigration story, again, it just I thought was really strong. Readability, I gave this a 7 out of 10. I just got this from my local library like 2 weeks ago. I didn't read the whole thing, but it's a very readable book. The color strings you along. It's not incredibly long. I've shown a bunch of pages now. I think they're like, this is just such a great example of, I think, like a good use of space. Like they give you enough that you really feel like you get these characters, and at the same time not too wordy. Yeah, not too you never get stuck. I never felt stuck reading this whole book. It flowed very nicely. And then in terms of the X Factor nature, what I thought was sort of an X Factor about this, I gave it the 5 out of 10 overall. So not super high. Again, they're not introducing in totally new concepts like Shubik Lubik or like a mouse. But what I thought was really strong here was I had not seen someone use the mix of, I think, the art with the characters and the storytelling. They did a great job separating the present day with a different color tone. I think that was kind of unique. I think the mix of the flashbacks and the coming back to the present day, again, not wholly novel, but I think like there are a lot of these stories where you just jump in, you're sort of seeing it from one perspective go along, and I liked the kind of bouncing around elements that they did there. And even at the very end of the story, they go back kind of to the beginning too. So they have like a good temporal, interesting texture to it. And I would almost give it to a unique part of this as well. Like these categories all get a little intermingled at some spot, but they take the opportunity to tell some of the other people's stories, those side characters, that I just think are incredibly strong and memorable in some sense. Like I think that if I were to say overall, I thought this was a fantastic immigration story. I thought the core characters were very strong, but I think almost I could imagine there being a 10 out of 10 story here, really diving deep into some of the side characters they develop, because they're so interesting and kind of memorable and unique. But like that plays into the, I guess, the thematic nature, again reflected in the title. Like, this happens every day. People are taking risks every day to get out of some very harsh economic or social conditions of their native countries to make this, again, harrowing journey where they know their life is on the line. They're going to feel stressed every single day. They're, still making this because they believe that that's still the better choice for them and their family. So the humility of the book really comes through too, that they know that this is like something they went through, but they are not some absolutely unique case. It's just, I think sometimes I love the fact that they really lean into that this is sort of, I think, exceptional if you never had to do something like this or seriously embark upon it. But it highlights even the normal experiences of somebody going through something like this is quite fascinating and exceptional, I think. So overall, a very 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 strong 6.8 out of 10. Again, I think that hard not to give higher scores in this sometimes. I think I was just really impressed by the whole work as a whole. So highly suggest Just Another Story. Great story about the challenges of immigration, and thought it was fantastic. So until next time, leave it there.